Those that know me well will know that the video that I enjoy making the most, apart from flat earth ones of course, are on the topic of evolution. It's probably the most common type of video I've made in the Tinfoil Tuesday series, and for good reason. There's a lot of people out there that don't understand evolution. Hello all and welcome along to another episode of Tinfoil Tuesday with me, Simon Dan. Thank you very much for joining me. Rawmat is a YouTuber who has a distinct disbelief in evolution and even goes as far to say that he's debunked it on several occasions. So we're going to cast our eye over one of his videos entitled Darwin's Evolutionary Single Tree of Life Debunked. I suspect that he's talking about this, the modern example that shows a relationship between various biological groups. The idea being that you can trace back from any species and see how related that species is to another one via a common ancestor. However, Darwin's tree of life was nothing more than a sketch in his notebook. The page itself was titled I Think. This was clearly an early brainstorm and, in my opinion, one of sheer genius. Let's see which one he's going to try and debunk, shall we?
Mammals will always produce mammals, right? Vertebrate will always produce vertebrates. Chordata will always produce chordata. Whatever you are, it's called a nested hierarchy. So we bacteria went one way, the prokaryotes, we're eukaryotic. So here's a eukaryotic group that had evolution. We stemmed from that.
Oh, bit awkward. Looks like Rawmat there was participating in a debate on the now closed Non Sequitur show.
Okay, a bacteria can never produce a human. It can never produce anything that's eukaryotic because we're on a different line of phylogeny, different branch.
Bacteria to biologist. Evolutionists believe that bacteria can never become anything outside of that domain, and they are right. This cannot happen, nor has it ever happened. Yet, at the same time, they also claim and teach that it did happen, long ago and far away.
Yes, since bacteria have evolved, they cannot become eukaryotic. The difference here is cellular. We and the rest of the animal and plant kingdom have eukaryotic cells. They have a nucleus, are relatively larger and have many chromosomes. Bacteria are prokaryotic cells. They're a lot smaller, don't have a nucleus and only have one chromosome. When these two types of cells split, their paths haven't crossed since.
So, we know today that the domain bacteria belong only to bacteria. They cannot change domains in any experiment, nor any that has ever been seen. Yet, they expect us to believe that this did happen, because they need this to happen for their theory to work.
What is hard to understand? Prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells had a common ancestor. After that, they travelled along different evolutionary paths.
They swear that complex eukaryotic cells ushered in a whole new era of life on Earth, which all came from bacteria. So, when they tell you, no, we don't think humans evolved from bacteria, they don't know what they're talking about.
I don't know anyone who would have said that though, but it's better put that we are descendants of bacteria.
So from the beginning, life went in three different directions, and these are called domains. A domain is one level up from a kingdom in terms of classification. And we've got the well-known bacteria domain, but what we're mostly concerned with here is the eukaryote domain. And the word eukaryote means true cell. And what happened was a process called endosymbiosis, where various type of bacteria combined together. One cell went into another cell to create a more complex cell.
Not really sure why that's funny. I guess we're about to find out.
They don't know what they're talking about. They do believe that, because that is what the theory teaches. Originally, the bacteria had to swap domains and become a eukaryote, which later evolved into humans.
That is a fundamental misunderstanding. They didn't swap domains, a new domain was created.
How? Well, they tell us that these cyanobacteria evolved into multicellular organisms by either accidental mutations or some other unknown random process. I'll describe one of these dumb scenarios in a minute. But how did the eukaryotic cell itself evolve, and how did a worthless single-cell bacteria without any thought make this evolutionary leap from a single cell in the bacteria domain to a more complex cell in the eukaryote domain? They have no clue at all, just random speculation and pure imagination. One guess is that the eukaryotic cell ate a free-living bacterium that had mitochondrial, which may have ended up staying as some sort of permanent house guest, which might have changed this cyanobacteria into eukaryotic. So they believe the cyanobacteria evolved into a single lineage into an entirely different domain through a process called endosymbiosis. No actual observable, testable, or repeatable science exists whatsoever for any of this, at any level.
The electron transport chain is a mechanism that transports electrons from one part of the cell to another for further chemical processes. Single-cell bacteria use this process, but crucially, so do mitochondria and chloroplasts, two internal structures of a eukaryotic cell. This is just one piece of evidence. There are countless more.
But don't worry, they will show you lines on paper that will explain it all. And don't forget, it's a scientific fact, and true until proven otherwise.
Well, how else do you want us to depict the tree of life, if not lines on paper?
So yes, they do believe that we evolved from bacteria, an entirely different domain than eukaryotes. Exactly the opposite of what they try to tell you in debates.
Okay, a bacteria can never produce a human.
But I think you know full well that he was referring to bacteria right now, not bacteria from the ancient past.
No matter what they try to say, they do believe that these bacteria went through endosymbiosis and moved from the bacteria domain into the eukaryote domain. Oh, and this was all supposed to have happened 3.5 to 3.8 billion years ago. And never again, not even today, no matter how much they are forced to in laboratories.
The issue is, though, you're expecting something to happen in 5 minutes, which took billions of years initially.
Today we're going to look at evolution and the history of life on Earth. We're going to trace the evolutionary journey from the earliest single-celled organisms all the way up to modern humans, step by step. So let's start here at the bottom. The most simple type of life, a single cell, came to exist about 4 billion years ago. And we don't know exactly why or how.
Mammals will always produce mammals, right? Vertebrate will always produce vertebrates. Chordata will always produce chordata. Whatever you are, it's called a nested hierarchy. So bacteria went one way, the prokaryotes, we're eukaryotic. So here's a eukaryotic group that had evolution. We stemmed from that. Okay, a bacteria can never produce a human. It can never produce anything that's eukaryotic because we're on a different line of phylogeny, different branch.
Again, what's funny here? That is all correct.
The evolutionary tree of life, bacteria, man, whales and pine trees, all related through common ancestry, and yet what we see is that things are going down and not up. We observe devolution.
Do we?
Geneticists can see that it is a fact that mankind is degenerating and that forward evolution is not feasible. Deleterious. Bad mutations are accumulating faster than they are being selected away. This means that the human genome, as I've stated, is degenerating. Mutations in natural selection, evolutionists look to as mechanisms that are going to take their bacteria-like organisms into whales. Some evolutionists even deny this, as you can see here with Steve McRae. They're so embarrassed of their science fiction-based religion.
I'm not. But your point on devolution is a poor one. Who are you to say that we are devolving? Yes, there is an argument that our intelligence and our technology is stunting natural selection in our species. But this is our evolution. Whether you think it's positive or not, it's still happening.
At the end of the day, they'll claim that the Earth was one time ruled by single-celled, bacteria-like organisms. And yet, what do we see today? Observable evidence tells us that dogs produce dogs, bacteria produce bacteria, and whales produce whales. Yet they'll say that whales, bacteria, and man are all related through common ancestry. They'll look to nested hierarchies, but we do not see forward evolution.
No one would suggest that these animals wouldn't produce offspring that aren't the same species as them. To think otherwise would be ridiculous.
Mutations, for example, random changes in the genome or in the instruction manual of life, are almost always deleterious and will systematically destroy essential information. We see adaptive degeneration. We see that things are breaking. Devolution is being observed. These mechanisms work by breaking down genes. And that means evolution. Sure, it can help species and organisms to change, to be different, to adapt. This is only surface level, though.
Right, you seem to be banging the same drum over and over. Do you want to expand on this or perhaps bring some evidence forth?
Because it doesn't have the ability to build or create anything new or novel at the genetic level. Evolution falls short. And that means that it is impossible for a bacteria-like organism to change through incremental steps and stages into something as complex as a whale or a human being. It is science fiction religion at its finest.
In your opinion, I've already given you one piece of evidence as to show how this is possible. You can find so much more. But let me guess, none of this will be acceptable for you.
Picture a car. You want to get better gas mileage on this car, so you start throwing things away. Throw off the doors. The car is lighter. You get better gas mileage, but it's through breaking things, and it's long-term problem.
Stop right there, because the minute you start using analogies like that, you are showing your hand. That hand being that you have a fundamental misunderstanding on what evolution is and the processes that drive it. And that is a real shame, Raw Matt, because you cannot argue against evolution without a proper understanding of it. Well, there we go, another one bites the dust. Raw Matt can sit in the same group as Kent Hovind, Ray Comfort and Matt Powell Official. Thank you all very much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed it. Please do subscribe if the feeling takes you and drop a like on the video as well. Tomorrow, episode 2 of the podcast is out. I'll leave in the link in the description for those as well. I've been Simon Dan. Have yourselves a fantastic week. And I'll see you all on Friday where we get some theories from Mr. Trey Clark. See you then.